January 23, 1968, northwestern South Vietnam. The air above Khe Sanh is trembling. The wind claws at the ridgeline like an animal trying to rip the mountain apart. Dust spins upward in violent spirals. The earth is cracked, sliding, groaning under its own weight. And above it, slicing through the clouds, comes the unmistakable thump, thump, thump of American rotor blades. A UH-1D Huey, call sign Dustoff 7-4, punches through the fog. Inside the cockpit, Captain Mark Halperin fights the turbulence with both hands locked on the cyclic. His co-pilot, First Lieutenant Raymond Cole, squints through the windshield smeared with red dust and smoke. Below them, the Marines of Bravo Company, 1st Battalion, 26th Regiment are pinned down and running out of everything: ammo, morphine, plasma, even drinking water. The siege of Khe Sanh has turned the hills into open graves. But this landing zone is different. It isn't a field. It isn't a clearing. It isn't even flat. It's a collapsing mountainside, a sheer slope of unstable rock that engineering teams had marked on their maps with a thick black X, meaning no landing possible. But orders were orders. Bravo Company needed resupply now, and every second they delayed meant another Marine bleeding into the mud. Cole leans forward, staring down at the jagged terrain. "Sir, that slope's 65 degrees. It's giving way. That whole damn shelf is sliding." Halperin doesn't answer. He can't. Both hands are busy trying to keep the Huey level as crosswinds shove the aircraft sideways. The altimeter jitters violently. Below, the Marines are waving bright orange panels, signaling the pilot toward a spot that looks less like a landing zone and more like a mistake etched into a mountainside. A half-collapsed ledge only wide enough for a single skid. A pinnacle landing. The kind veterans talk about with a shake of the head. The kind no one is ever supposed to attempt under fire. And as if on cue, the first muzzle flashes flicker through the tree line. NVA rifles open up, their rounds snapping past the cockpit like hornets. Tracers carve red lines upward toward the Huey. Cole jerks his head down instinctively. NVA on the North Ridge. We're in the open. Jesus! Halperin pushes the collective down, dropping fast. The Huey drops like a stone, rotors screaming, the airframe rattling so hard the crew chief thinks they're about to lose the tail boom. "Hold on!" Halperin shouts. The Huey slams into ground effect. The ridge shakes. The entire mountainside seems to shift beneath them. Dust explodes upward, blinding the skids, the Marines, and the incoming enemy fire. Halperin can't see the ledge anymore, only swirling brown chaos. His hands hover the controls with microscopic precision, trying to keep the helicopter balanced on nothing but air. The left skid finds purchase, a tiny perch of rock. The right skid hangs in open space. Half the helicopter is literally floating. Rotor wash blows loose rocks down the slope like marbles. The mountain groans again and drops an entire shelf of earth 30 meters down. Cole's voice trembles. "We shouldn't be alive right now." The crew chief yells from the back. "We've got 10 seconds, tops. The mountain's caving in." And down below, Marines surge forward through the dust to unload crates. Ammo, bandages, water, all lifelines, while NVA gunfire grows louder, closer, angrier. Halperin adjusts the cyclic a millimeter at a time, sweat pouring down his face. This isn't flying. This is survival by fingertip. And then, just as the Marines finish unloading, something deep beneath the Huey cracks, a sound like thunder, inside the earth. The ledge begins to give way. The mountain starts collapsing under them. The first chunk of earth drops like a bomb. Rocks tumble down the slope, bouncing, splitting, smashing into trees below. The Huey lurches sideways as the ground vanishes under the left skid, the only stable point they had left. For a split second, the helicopter hangs in midair, no longer landing, no longer hovering, just falling. Cole screams, "Mark, pull!" Halperin jerks the collective up, but the Huey is tilted at a lethal angle. The rotor disc is seconds from striking the mountain wall. One blade strike, and the entire aircraft will shred itself into metal confetti. Inside the cabin, the crew chief grabs the stanchion with both arms. "We're tipping! We're tipping!" The sound of the collapsing mountainside becomes a roar, a grinding, sliding avalanche of soil and stone. Dust blasts up into the cockpit, choking visibility. The ground they were supposed to land on is simply gone. The Huey drops 5, then 8, then 12 feet toward the void. And then Halperin does something no flight manual has ever written, taught, or approved. He kicks the left pedal hard, drives the cyclic toward the slope, and uses the collapsing mountainside as a wall of air, converting what should have been a fatal tilt into a sliding pivot. The Huey skims the surface of the collapse just inches from the rock. Rotor wash whips the dust into a hurricane. Halperin's boots vibrate as the entire aircraft shakes under asymmetric lift. The crew chief yells, "Trees! Below! Trees!" They're dropping toward a cluster of shattered pines cracked by artillery. If the skids hit the treetops, they'll flip and tear open like a soda can. Cole slams his hand on the console. "We don't have lift! We don't have lift!" But Halperin's eyes are locked forward. He sees something the others don't. The collapsing slope is crumbling downward, sucking air with it. And that downward airflow is feeding the Huey's rotor like a turbine. If he times it right, if he catches the upward rebound of wind, they might slingshot out of the collapse. If he miscalculates, they die, all of them, instantly. He whispers to himself more than to Cole. Wait, now. He yanks the cyclic up and right. The Huey surges. Dust explodes upward. The rotor bites into a rising gust. The aircraft rockets sideways in a maneuver that violates every principle of safe flight. But on this collapsing mountain, it's the only chance. They blast upward through a curtain of dust and broken branches, scraping so close to the rock face that the crew chief's boot brushes stone. The NVA realize the helicopter isn't crashing. It's escaping. Gunfire erupts from the tree line below. Bullets chew the air around them, ricocheting off the skid, punching through the tail boom. One round snaps the medevac cable clean off its hook, sending it whipping in the wind. Cole shouts, "Tails hit! We're losing hydraulic pressure!" Halperin doesn't answer, doesn't dare look away. The instrument panel is shaking so hard he can barely read it. Warning lights flash, but he ignores them. He flies by instinct, by feel, by the trembling transmitted from the rotor through the pedals into his bones. Behind him, the Marines on the mountain stare upward through the dust, watching the impossible, a helicopter clawing its way off a collapsing slope, practically riding an avalanche's updraft like a surfer catching a wave. The Huey breaks free of the dust cloud, but only into something worse. A second NVA position opens fire from the opposite ridge, this time with heavy machine guns. Tracer lines cross in front of the cockpit like red-hot ropes. Cole freezes. We're boxed in, both ridges. We're dead. Halperin tightens his grip on the cyclic. Not yet. He throws the Huey into a maneuver the pilots at Khe Sanh will later describe as insane, reckless, and utterly brilliant. He aims directly at the ridge, firing at them, straight into the incoming tracers, straight into the kill zone, because in that direction there's a gap. In the clouds, a sliver of sky, a way out if they survive the next 8 seconds. The first 4 seconds are nothing but noise. Machine gun rounds rip past the windshield, stitching the air with fire. The cockpit fills with the metallic ping of impacts against the fuselage. The armor plates behind the seats vibrate as rounds strike them like fists. Cole hunches forward, shouting, "They're bracketing us! Left! Right! Left!" He stops mid-sentence as a burst tears through the air, inches from his face. The tracer's so close he feels the heat. Halperin doesn't look, doesn't blink. He shoves the cyclic forward, nosing the Huey down into a dive so steep the mountainside becomes a green blur. Behind them, the tail boom rattles like a loose bone. Hydraulics whine. One of the warning lights goes from amber to furious red. The crew chief screams from the cargo bay, "We're leaking! We've got fluid everywhere!" Halperin shouts back without turning, "How bad? If it keeps leaking, we'll lose tail control any second." But Halperin knows they don't have any second to spare. They have 4 seconds left before they hit the ridge. The NVA machine gun nest ahead arcs tracers like a burning crown. The gunners can't believe their eyes. The Americans are charging them. In the cabin, the helicopter's engine screams at max torque, straining past safe limits. The rotor RPM needle trembles on the edge of the red zone. Cole stares ahead in disbelief. "Mark! We can't go through them!" Halperin finally answers, his voice steady, quiet. "We're not going through them." He pulls the cyclic left, a sharp, violent movement, too sharp. The Huey rolls sideways, port skid facing the sky. The world tilting so hard the crew chief is thrown against the opposite wall. For one breathless moment, the rotor disc is almost vertical. The NVA gunners lose them in the sudden angle change. Their tracers sweep over empty space. Halperin holds the bank, skimming the ridgeline at treetop height, then slams the collective and pedals together, shifting the Huey into a snap turn so tight it pulls the stomachs out of every man in the cabin. The helicopter side slides across the face of the ridge, the trees passing beneath them so close their rotor wash tears leaves from branches. Bullets chase them, but the NVA can't lead the target. The Huey is moving too fast, too unpredictably. The pilot using terrain as if he can feel every contour under the skids. Then they hit the gap, a sudden opening in the clouds, a window of sky, bright and clean compared to the chaos behind them. Halperin yanks the cyclic back. The nose rises. The Huey claws upward. Tracers pass below them like glowing arrows. The sounds of machine guns fade into the canyon. Cole gasps, We're clear! Holy hell! We're clear! The crew chief collapses back into his seat, panting, but Halperin doesn't relax. He sees the gauges, sees the truth. The tail hydraulic pressure drops another notch. The Huey shudders, drifting. Hydraulics are going, he says quietly. We've got maybe 1 minute before we lose the tail. Cole turns pale. If we lose the tail rotor, Halperin finishes it. We spin. Hard. And we don't walk away from that. Below them, the collapsing mountain shrinks into a swirling brown cloud. Behind them, 2 NVA ridges still burn with muzzle flashes. Ahead of them, only jungle, fog, and the thin hope of making it back to Khe Sanh before the helicopter tears itself apart. Halperin steadies the cyclic with both hands. We're not safe yet. Brace. The hard part's still coming. The Huey limps forward, trembling, wounded, leaking, losing control with every mile. And on the horizon, another ridge rises, one they must cross to survive. The ridge rises like a wall, dark, jagged, unwelcoming. To any other pilot, it looks like the end. To Halperin, it's the only line between living and dying. He pushes the Huey toward it, gentle but firm, as if coaxing a wounded animal. Every vibration in the pedals tells him the truth. The tail rotor's losing authority. He can feel it slipping, the way a car feels right before it fishtails on black ice. Cole leans over the console. Pressure's critical. 30 seconds and we lose the tail. The crew chief shouts from the cargo bay. We can't climb at this speed. We need more power. Halperin shakes his head. More power, and we overspeed the rotor. It'll tear itself apart. Every option is bad. Every choice is lethal. But pilots in Vietnam survive by choosing the least impossible option. He angles the Huey toward a narrow cut in the ridgeline, a pass barely wider than the helicopter's rotor span. Trees scrape the skids as he approaches. The airflow becomes erratic, buffeting them side to side, the jungle canopy rushing up like a rising sea. Cole grips the dashboard with white knuckles. Mark, tail pressure's dropping. 20 seconds. Halperin takes a slow, controlled breath. All right, 1 shot. He lowers the collective slightly, not to descend, but to build rotor RPM. The Huey dips toward the trees, the crew chief curses, bracing for impact. Then Halperin pulls up, hard. The rotor bites the air with renewed strength. The Huey surges toward the gap in the ridge. The tail rotor shudders. A warning horn screams. The panel flashes red. Cole yells, Tail control! We're losing it! Halperin ignores him. He keeps the nose pointed at the narrow pass as if willing the helicopter through. The jungle reaches for them, branches whipping against the fuselage. A pine tree scrapes the belly. A branch shatters across the skid. The Huey climbs, 5 feet, 10 feet, 20, 40. And then, with the last usable breath of the tail rotor, they clear the ridge. The world opens in front of them, revealing the smoky, battered valley of Khe Sanh. The airbase sits below, flares burning, artillery thundering warnings into the hills. American radar sees them the moment they crest the ridge. A voice bursts through the comms. Dust off 7-4! You're trailing smoke! Report status! Halperin doesn't have time to answer. The tail rotor pressure hits 0. The pedals freeze. The Huey yaws right, spinning. Cole shouts, We're losing it! We're spinning! Halperin does the only thing a Vietnam pilot can do when the tail rotor dies at altitude. He chops throttle to reduce torque, forcing the spin to slow, then noses the bird down into a controlled forward glide. It's barely a technique, more of a desperate prayer. No manual teaches it, no instructor recommends it, but on this day, in this cockpit, under this pilot, it works. The spin slows enough for Halperin to line up with a bare patch of earth inside the Khe Sanh perimeter. Artillery crews on the ground watch in disbelief as the Huey wobbles in, side-slipping, shaking like metal about to split. Cole braces. The crew chief grabs the ceiling strap. Halperin flares the helicopter just before impact. The skids slam into the dirt. The Huey bounces, skids again, slides hard across the earth, throwing up a wall of dust behind it. Finally, it stops. Silence. The rotors wind down with a groan, blades spinning slower, and then stopping completely. Halperin exhales, hands still locked to the controls. Cole leans back, staring at the ceiling. The crew chief whispers, How the hell did we survive that? Before Halperin can answer, Marines run up, pulling the wounded from under ponchos, shouting thanks, slapping the hull of the shot-up Huey as if it were a living thing that clawed its way home. One Marine corporal leans into the cockpit and shakes his head. Sir, that ridge you came over, engineers said no helicopter could make it, not with that wind, not with that slope, not with all this fire. Halperin finally lets go of the cyclic, his hand trembling. He looks out through the cracked windshield toward the mountains still collapsing in the distance. Impossible, he says quietly, is just something you don't know you can do yet. Behind him, Dustoff 7-4 settles into silence, broken, battered, leaking, but alive. A helicopter that defied physics and brought a company of Marines back from the edge.